Hey friends, welcome to Labor Laws lecture series, and as you are aware we are discussing the Employee State Insurance Act 1948, and this is related to unit 4 of KSLU LLB syllabus, and we already covered the overview of Employee State Insurance Act in previous video. In this video we will be discussing key definitions. Key definitions which we are going to discuss in this video are employment injury, dependent, principal employer, immediate employer, employee, contribution, corporation and confinement. Okay, so first let us look into an definition of a employment injury which is defined in section 2(1) and clause 8. According to this, employment injury means a personal injury to an employee, caused by the accident or an occupational disease. Okay, any injury happens to employee which is a result of an accident or an occupational disease arising out of and in the course of employment. So, two important aspects in this definition. One is it is any injury caused by accident or occupational disease, and then this should arise out of or in the course of employment. In the course of employment means it is a time. So whenever he is employed, see, office time starts from 9 to 6. If anything happens between this, then it is called it in a simple sense, right? So it should be in the course of employment. It should not be at when he was at home. Some accident happens when he is at a home, right? In the night 9 o'clock, then this will not be considered as an injury in this particular section. And then out of employment. Okay, out of employment means it is a work related. There should be some connection between the work employee is doing at the time of accident. If employee is doing something else, he is fighting with his colleague, though he is in office premises, if he is fighting with his colleague for some personal reasons, then it will not be termed as out of employment. Okay, so to call it as an injury, there should be two things. One is time of the event is important, and the other one is the work, the kind of a work or a nature of the work is also important, because this in the case of Bai Atmaram versus Bombay Port Trust, it was held that there should be some connection between the employment and the accident injury. Any accident which happens, there should be some connection with the work. The similar view was expressed in ESI Corporation Bangalore versus VL Rangarao. Okay, the work should see, what they say is time is immaterial here. So in the course of employment, so focus on time, but in this particular case, ESI Corporation Bangalore versus VL Rangarao, time is immaterial and the place of accident is also immaterial. As long as we are able to establish some nexus or casual connection related to work. Okay, if anything related to work, if there is some casual connection to the work, then it will be termed as employment injury. Okay, time is immaterial and the place of the accident is also immaterial. A person is going out of the office premises to deposit cash. Okay, so it is office work, right? It is office work. So it is related to work. If any accident happens, then this will be termed as employment injury. Okay, we have a detailed video in the course of employment and out of employment, these two terms, right, in a Employee Compensation Act 1923. For the more discussion on this particular point, please refer Employee Compensation Act 1923 video. In the videos, where the video is covering employer's liability for compensation. In this, we have clearly called out what is injury and what is in the course of employment and out of employment, etc. Okay. Moving to next point, next term, dependent. Dependent has been is defined in section 26A of Employee State Insurance Act of 1948. Here there are three categories of dependents. This is the first category and the second category and third category. This also we discussed in detail in Employee Compensation Act. I request you to refer this particular video where we have given a detailed explanation with the case studies for dependent. Okay, please refer this particular video, and here is the link for it. Okay, uh, I'll read out, I'll give brief information about dependent in this particular video also. The first category of dependents are a widow, who are a first line of connection with the deceased person. A widow is a wife, and then a legitimate or adopted son. A son who is a legitimate or a adopted, but illegitimate will not come here, but who has not attained the age of 25 years. Remember, the number of age of a person should not be more than 25, and an unmarried legitimate or adopted daughter. Okay, the daughter, if is there, she should be unmarried, and a widowed mother. If father is alive, then mother will not be eligible for eligible to call as a dependent. So the share will be the dependent, the entire amount of lump sum amount of a deceased person as a compensation will be shared among these first category of resources. Okay, and the second category of parties or relatives will also be called as a dependent, provided at the time of a death of a person, their legitimate or adopted son or a daughter who has attained the age of 25 but who is in infirm status. Infirm status means physically challenged or mentally challenged, or who is not in a capacity to earn because of physical or mental reasons. Okay, as long as they are infirm at the time of the death of a person, then they are also called as dependents. So then they will also get a share in compensation. The third category of resources are a distant relatives, or it is a next level of relatives of a person, deceased person, and they have to prove that they are depending on the earnings of the deceased person. These guys have to prove, but in the first one and two cases they need not to prove, but in the third category they have to prove that they are dependent on they were dependent on the earnings of deceased person. Okay, here it includes a parent other than widowed mother. Okay, so mother and father, if father is also alive, and then both father and mother has to say that they are dependent, therefore they have to prove that they are dependent on insured person's earnings. And then minor illegitimate son, unmarried illegitimate daughter. Okay, so minor illegitimate son and the unmarried illegitimate daughter. And then in case of a daughter who is married, who is whether legitimate or illegitimate, but if she is a minor, or if she is a widowed minor, in those cases also they can claim that they are dependent. And then a minor brother, or a minor unmarried, or an unmarried sister, or a widowed sister if she is a minor. And then widowed daughter-in-law, a minor child of a predeceased son, son's son is already, if son is not alive, then son also can claim as a dependent, but he has to prove that he is depending on deceased person income. And the same way, minor child of a predeceased daughter, provided if no parents are alive. If both the parents are not alive, then minor child of a deceased daughter will also can claim as a dependent. And then a paternal grandparent, father's father and father's father, and then father's mother can also be called as a dependent if they prove that they are depending on this person's income, but the fathers or a parent should not be alive. If a parent are alive, then grandparents cannot claim any right of a dependent. So for the more discussion about dependent, including the case studies, I request you to refer Employee Compensation Act 1923 video, which talks about dependents and employee, which is link is here. So please refer this particular video. Okay, moving to other important topic, principal employer. Principal employer means owner of the factory. Okay, any owner of the factory who's managing the affairs of the factory is called as principal employer in general. But in for the Employee State Insurance Act, right, it uses a manager who has been defined in a Factories Act. Every company will nominate one person as a manager who is responsible to manage the acts related to manage the compliance related to Factories Act of 1948. The same person will also be considered as principal employer here. If any factory is there where there are more than 10 employees, okay, and out of that there will be one owner, and the owner can nominate one person as a manager for all the other remaining employees. So this manager will be considered as principal employer if it is named. Otherwise, the owner will be considered as principal employer. The second one is, in any establishment under the control of any department of any government of India, the appointed by such government in this behalf, or whether no authority is so appointed, then the head of the department. If any entity or any establishment which comes under the department of the government of India, then the government has to appoint who is a responsible person on behalf of them. If they are not appointed, then head of the department of that establishment will be termed as principal employer. Okay. In any other establishments, whoever is a supervisor or whoever is having a control of that particular establishment, then those persons will be treated as principal employer. Okay. And now immediate employer. Immediate employer, it is, let me give an example and then we will look into a definition. Okay. Here is a film talkies here, Royal Talkies. It is a real case which I am giving it, Royal Talkies. We know whenever we say theaters, there will be cycle stand or a car stand, parking area, okay, and then canteen or a cafe, okay. So in any talkies, this will be there, okay. Royal Talkies owner who, okay, you has given a contract to Mr. Jed. Okay, he has given contract to Mr. Jed to run cycle stand and canteen. In Royal Talkies, if 20 employees are there, and for maintaining a cycle stand, Jed appoints 5 people, and to run a canteen, Jed appoints 10 people. Okay. See, now for a Royal Talkies, there are 20 employees who are directly working, projector man, then gatekeeper, then cleaner, and all those technician, electrician, those all are working with the Royal Talkies. And then there are 5 people who are working in a cycle stand, but they are employed by Jed, and then 10 people who are working in canteen, but it is employed by Jed, but not by Royal Talkies. In this case, Royal Talkies will be called as principal employer and Jed will be called as immediate employer. As Royal Talkies comes under ESI Act, and these parties, 5 people and these 10 people are working in the Royal Talkies premises. So Royal Talkies will be called as principal employer. The owner of the Royal Talkies will be called as principal employer, and Jed will be called as immediate employer. Okay. Any contract resources which are taken from third party, the third party will be called as immediate employer, and the person who has taken contract resources is called as principal employer. The only condition here is the principal employer must have registered for ESI. Okay. If any person comes from a third party and works in a ESI environment, then the owner of the factory or a manager of the factory will be called as principal employer. Okay, let's look into the definition of employee now. It is defined in section 2(9) of the Employee State Insurance Act 1948. Very simple definition. Employee means any person employed for wages, any person employed for wages in or in connection with the work of a factory. Any person is working in a factory or is working in connection of a factory or establishment to which this act applies. Wherever this act is applicable for any factory or any establishment, if person is employed there for the purpose of for earning a wages, then and is also working with that factory related work, then that person is called as an employee. 2 points. One is wages and then the connection with the work. So person is employed for the purpose of wages and in connection to the work. Few points which we need to remember here. This employee includes the persons who are directly employed by the principal employer. We discussed earlier, the principal employer is the one who directly appoints the employees. Person A, B, C are directly employed by principal employer. Then these guys will be called as employees. Okay. And second category, if principal employer takes some resources from immediate employer, there are P and Q. Okay. These P and Q are given from immediate employer to this principal employer. So P and Q are a contract resources who are taken from Mr. X. Okay, this is called as an immediate employer, but P, Q, A, B and C all are called as employees for principal employer here. Though P and Q are appointed by here Mr. X, but from the Act perspective, P and Q are employees for principal employers. Okay. And the third category, apart from that, if a principal employer takes few part-time or a small employees for a limited period for one or two resources like N and L for a limited period, it is a short term. So even those guys are also called as employees of principal employer. So three categories of people included in employees. One is directly appointed by principal employer, or principal employer hired few resources from an immediate employer, and the third one temporarily hired resources from other employers is also called as employee. This is a employee definition. And this employee term does not include any member of Indian Naval, Military or Air Force, and any person who is drawing salaries wages more than 21,000 per month. If any person is drawing more than 21,000 per month, then will not be termed as employee under this particular act. Okay, few small definitions. One is contribution. Contribution means, as I said in the beginning itself, or in the title of the act itself, calls insurance, right? When we say insurance, everybody has to make some contribution to it. When we buy life insurance, we pay premium. The same way here also, both employer, principal employer and employee has to contribute. Okay, contribute for employee state insurance. So that is the contribution here. Normally the process is employee gives his contribution to employer, where employer deducts it from his salary or wages, and then he adds his particular portion. So employee has to give 0.75% of his salary, and employer has to pay 3.25% of employee's salary. So employee collects from employer collects from employee and adds his share and deposit into employee state insurance. So here the contribution definition is, contribution means the sum of money payable to the corporation by the principal employer in respect of an employee, and includes any amount payable by or on behalf of the employee in accordance with the provisions of the act. Any contribution, right? As per provision now, 0.75% of employee wages and 3.25% of employee wages. Employee will give this 0.75, employer has to give 3.25, and principal employer has to deposit this. And then other question is corporation. Corporation here means employee state insurance corporation set up under this act. For the administration of a ESI scheme, okay, central government has set up a corporation. The corporation name is Employees State Insurance Corporation. In short, it is called as ESIC. Okay, ESIC. And the last term, confinement, there is a maternity benefit available to employees of state insurance, women employees of employee state insurance who are insured under this act. And this confinement means the labor resulting in the issue of a living child, or labor after 26 months of pregnancy resulting in a issue of a child, or child whether alive or dead. Okay, living child or a dead child. But after 26 weeks of pregnancy, if a result is alive or dead is immaterial. If there is a pregnancy, then the person that is called as confinement. Okay, that's it on the key terms definition. So where we discussed the key terms like employment injury, dependents, principal employer, immediate employer, employee, contribution, corporation, and confinement. Okay, these 7 definitions are very key, are very crucial to discuss the next subject matter about Employees State Insurance Act 1948. Thank you for listening me, and I request you to please subscribe this channel and click a like button. And in the next video, we will be discussing about administration of ESI scheme. Thank you.